at the restaurant, they had huge bags of shells outside. And you're right, people might be using those for ornamental purposes. So that was a good one. So that we'll put that down as a single plus. Clay. I think we've already answered this one. And energy. So this is for harvesting energy from flows of water, through hydropower, or through flows of wind. 0? Perfect. Okay, now the regulating services. Air quality regulation. This is the ability of wetlands to improve air quality, to take out particulate matter, and to improve air quality. What do we have for that? We had a double plus there. Double plus there. Had a 0 there, right? That's a bit of a difference. 1 plus there. Double plus. Right. In terms of the air quality regulation, who benefits? I know humans, but who benefits from the air quality regulation out on the mudflats?
Nobody, because there was no people in the surroundings.
So there's no one living around there. There are a few fishermen out there, very small number of fishermen. But also, how are the mudflats improving air quality? Are there any plants or trees that are trapping any particulate matter? So again, this is where you've got to think about the processes of how are we going to remove pollutants? Is there a source of pollutants out there? So are there cars? There's a lot of traffic generating a pollutant. Are there other sources of pollutants from maybe industry or dust from quarries or something? And are there the mechanisms then to trap those particulate matter which could be damaging to people's lungs? So you need a source. If you're going to regulate something, and this is the same for many of the regulating services, there needs to be a source of something that is being regulated. And in this one, it would be air pollution. And if there isn't the source of pollution, then it's highly unlikely the service will be delivered. Equally, if there's no one directly benefiting, you might have really good air quality regulation, but if there's no one benefiting from that, then the service isn't being realised to human society. So I'd say in this situation, the tidal flats, there isn't really a source of pollution out there in terms of air pollution. It's the air quality is pretty good. There's not a lot of heavy industry around. There's not high numbers of cars driving through there. And there's a very, very low number of people. I mean, we are looking at probably tens of fishermen out there. So I would say that would be a 0 rather than a plus. There's also really no mechanism in terms of the structure of the vegetation. It's very much an open, flat landscape. Does that make sense? So that group can stop smiling and thinking they're really smug because they might have got it right. We'll come back to you in a minute. Okay, local climate regulation. So this is the ability of the wetlands to improve the climate on a local level in terms of moderating temperature, maybe generating local rainfall. We have a 1 plus out there? 1 plus? 2 plus? So we're going 1 plus, 2 plus. So basically, I think without a doubt, that mudflat area is absorbing heat from the sun. It's transpiring water, evaporating water. There is some transpiration. So it will be locally reducing air temperatures, without a doubt. But I don't think there's many people that benefit from that because of the distance of the mudflats. They are several hundred metres away from where people live, because it's quite a large coastal strip in terms of the reed marsh. And there's not many people out there. So I would say if you had the mudflat going right up to areas of population, it would probably be 2 plus, because there could be many, many people living in those areas of population. But because of, from where we saw the mudflats, there was a big gap between the mudflat, then the reed marsh, and before you get to a lot of people. It's probably only a small number of people benefit from that. So I would probably go for 1+ rather than 2. But if it was a slightly different configuration, and other parts of the mudflat, where you have mudflat coming right up to centres of population, you would probably go for 2+, because many more people would benefit. Does that make sense? Hopefully. So we'll go 1+. Okay, global climate regulation. 1+. Question mark, okay. 0. 1+. And not sure. Again, I would say if you're not sure, then the question mark is obviously the right answer. But there's some very, very good research that shows that tidal mudflats are very, very organic rich. There's a lot of organic material that is sequestered, and they can be incredibly important stores of carbon. Ideally, I mean, we don't know that just looking at that mudflat. You'd need to walk out there and dig a hole down sort of 4 or 5 meters to see how much carbon would be in the soil. But there's a very good evidence, when we looked at some of this the day before yesterday in terms of the IPCC reports, that mudflats and coastal wetlands are incredibly important stores of carbon, and that they sequester carbon at a very high rate. And if you think about the geomorphological processes and the biogeochemical processes, you have areas where a lot of sediment is being deposited coming off the land. A lot of that is high in organic material from the catchment. That is getting deposited on these mudflats, and it's almost permanently waterlogged because of the environment it's in. So the organic material breaks down very, very slowly, and the conditions in the soil are anaerobic or anoxic, and therefore you don't get a breakdown of that carbon, you get accumulation of the carbon in the sediment. And as soon as you start accumulating carbon, that is carbon that isn't in the atmosphere. And because it's not in the atmosphere, then it's a store, and it is helping reduce the amount of carbon in the atmosphere, therefore in terms of climate change and changing the carbon balance in the atmosphere. If that area was drained, a lot of that carbon would go back into the atmosphere, and that would be a negative. But for this one, I would say it's a positive. And I would say because it's a positive, and if it's affecting if it's a global climate regulation.
They said you need to use this.
Okay. Because it's a global climate regulation, then many people are benefiting. So I put that down as a double plus. Does that make sense? Yep. But again, if you're not sure, what you might want to do is go away and see if someone's done a study on the mudflats in this part of the country or this part of the world to find out whether they were good sources of carbon. Okay, water regulation, regulating the flows of water. What do we have for that one? 1+. 1+. That's good. And regulating flooding. 1+. Yep. Again, for both of those two, they're positive, but I don't think a lot of people around the area are benefiting from it, so it's only a 1+. If you had large centres of population right up against the tidal flats, you might change that to a double plus because more people would benefit. And again, in terms of storms from the sea, was that people have that as a 1+ as well?
1+.
Yep. And again, I think those three are very similar in terms of the fact that because of the location, the geographical location of this tidal flat, it is providing the service, but not a huge number of people are benefiting. Okay, regulation of pest species such as mosquitoes, rats, other pest species there might be. 0. Okay, they're saying 0. Anyone else? We have a 1+, was that? 0. 0 and 1+. Okay, so the people who said 1+, you're saying that there was regulation of pests. Why are you saying 1+?
But
Yeah.